What we have here is a 2007 Honda VTX 1300. What we're going to be doing to this bike, this is going to be changed out to a 21-inch wheel, and we're also going to be doing some minor paint work to the front fairing, to the saddlebag lids. These were spray painted at one point, and also we're going to be painting this long sweeping fender that's going to replace the short fender that's currently on the bike. The wheel has already been sealed off, so it makes this spoke wheel tubeless, and this is what we're going to be putting on the VTX. The tire is going to be this Shinko 777. It's going to be a 120/70 by 21. I'll leave a link down to all this, including the wheel, in the description, so you can check it out if you want. As much as I would like to say this is a straightforward install, it is not. This wheel is for a Harley. It has Harley bearings in it. These bearings are 25 millimeters. And for the Honda VTX, they use 6304 bearings, which are 20 millimeter bearings. 6304 RS, this is going to fit directly on the axle for the Honda VTX. But I do have a rotor that is on the way because the Honda VTX's rotor will not fit. And also I had to get standard size screws because the metric bolts will not fit in here either. Here we have the VTX rotor. Across, it measures 13 inches. The Harley rotor is going to be around 11.8 inches. You can also see the mounting points are not the same. Now, if we're putting a smaller rotor on here, it's going to cause the caliper to not line up. So if we're making it smaller, it's not going to fully sit on that rotor. And so what we're going to have to do, as others have done before, is drill some new holes in here to remount the caliper so it can sit flush on the rotor. Not something that hasn't been done, but that is what's going to be required to get that 21 to fit. And also we may have to modify the spacer so the forks can be in alignment as well. And here is our inspiration for this, a VTX 1300, and the owner has given us everything we need to know. He hasn't left anything off the table. I love it when people don't gatekeep. If you want to see a full breakdown of this guy's VTX, I will leave a link down below. He has truly helped me out on this. For the new fender, the one that we have, it does not have holes tapped, so we can tap those holes when we need to and set it where we want to at that time. But this fender will not be on here once we put the 21 on. And that is the first bearing. That is the spacer that sits on the internal race of the inner race of the bearing. So that's going to sit on that bearing just fine. You see the chrome plating on that wheel, cheap, very cheap. It's literally flaking off. Wow. One more round of propane. This one will kind of slip out. Second one always comes out easier because there's no spacer. This is how the bearings are sitting inside the wheel, and that spacer is locking these bearings together. And so once you try to get your tool in there to grab the inner race to pull it out, you have to get a little bit of a gap between that spacer and the inner race. But once you get one of them out, it's just a matter of getting something else in from the other side, contacting the inner race and just hammering it out. Get an extension, get a hammer, and just get a socket, knock it out the inner race, and you're able to get these things out pretty easy. Here comes the fun part. We got a bearing driver. The bearing, some people freeze them. I like to knock mine in. Sit it there, line it up, take the hammer, knock it in, then we're gonna put the seals in. Yep. That's in. That spacer, drop it in like we're supposed to. That coating is trash, for real. Wow. I see I went in a little cricket. That's not gonna tear it up. There we go. What I'm doing right now is just lining that spacer up, so when I hit it that one good time, it's gonna lock in. There you go. You're looking straight through, lines up with the inner race. Perfect. This is what I use to pull my bearings, but I use it in a different way. When I lock it in on the inner race, I use this tool, hammer on the other end. See, it's mushroomed. It's specifically for this. but I use it to hammer a portion of this tool to pull the bearings out. But it is from a slide hammer set from Harbor Freight. The reason I don't use the slide hammer, it doesn't really work for me, especially when you have the wheels off of the bike. You don't have the weight on the other end of the slide hammer to hold the wheel in place for you to use that to pull the bearing out. Yeah, this tool, it comes from Harbor Freight. It's a part of a bigger set. There you go. This is my bearing driver set from Motion Pro. It's a little pricey. It has not failed me. It is well built. Over here running my mouth, and I forgot to put these in, seals. Take a mallet, tap it in one side, flip it over. Take the other seal. This keeps moisture out. And folks, we are done. And what was holding the wheel up on the table? Ta-da, nothing but some paint buckets. That's it. Yes, there's better tools, but you get the job done. All right, for those of you that don't know, this is my tire changing kit. It's called the Robaconda. The whole thing is in this bag. I have never done a 21-inch wheel on the Robaconda. It goes up to a 21-inch, and you can do up to a 250 millimeter wide rear tire. So this thing, in theory, it should handle this just fine. All right. All right. And we're done. Added 6 weights and she's balanced. We're still waiting for the rotor. I'm gonna go ahead and take off the saddlebag lids because those will be getting paint. We're also gonna take off this front fairing. We're also gonna take this off, and I may even try to mock up the one that will be going on. I'll tell you, this scares me. First I need to do is get these speakers out, positive and a ground. One of these is actually popped off. These speakers are screwed in from the top down through the plastic. Dismount these first from the wiring so they can slide through, which should allow us to, I guess, then mess with that hinge. This hinge is it's a little wonky. I'm also not a huge fan of this, but that is not why I'm here. I would have put a better electrical connector on it, but I've done that before. Hey, if it works, it works. Press and it just slides out. You press and it slides out. You probably want to see it, so I'm going to show it to you. Here is the amp system back here. I don't want to strip this, and I don't want to move them out too fast, so I'm just going to take my time. I'm going to make sure that these can come out and go right back in. This should just come straight out. There we go. Yeah, see that? That right there was preventing it. So I'm taking my time taking it apart because I don't want something to break and it doesn't go back the way that we want. So just taking it all together slowly. Well, that's a little bit irritating. I think they want you to take the wheel off. I'm sure there might be another way to get the fender off. A little challenging without scuffing it up, and we don't want to do that. Broke this loose on one side. Got my breaker bar on the left. Oh, there we go. Okay. we were still waiting on the rotor. You can see it does line up. I don't know what the torque specs for this hardware is. Put some Loctite on it, some blue Loctite, and snug it really well. These little spiked washers that they give you, as you tighten it down, it has these little spikes on both sides that locks it in, so. Yo, for real, this is enough chrome for you to see me. Like, that's insane. Good luck keeping this clean. I think we got this exactly where we need it to. This spacer or collar is actually engaging with the axle even with this amount of gap. We're fine on that. We don't have to put another collar on here. But here's where the brake caliper doesn't fully seat with the rotor. Whoever put these steel braided lines on here did good, because I asked the guy who owns the bike now when he changed his brake fluid last, and he just he did not know, so I don't think he did this mod, but this is a really good mod. What happens on a lot of Japanese bikes, you get, actually these are the throttle cables, but they come with these rubber lines, and over time those rubber lines degrade, which is why I believe you're supposed to replace the brake fluid every 2 years, and I think the brake lines every 4 years, but steel braided is different. That rubber expands, so as you're trying to increase the braking pressure to stop, it becomes spongy because that rubber is no longer holding its original form, but steel braided, you're able to keep that pressure. And now I just need to take the caliper off, drill into it. If he ever decides to take this wheel off, he can go back with the stock wheel. The original spot right there is gonna always be there. We're just gonna be adding one spot right there and tapping it. I'm in the middle of tapping this. PB Blast giving me some lubrication so we don't break this tap off in here, but so far so good. This piece that holds all of this keeps slipping. I'm gonna use this PB Blast. I really do need a vise. Everything looks to be most okay. I might still put the tap back through there one more time to clean up. Looks like I tapped the wrong spot, cause she ain't lining up. I always make mistakes. So I was off by 8 millimeters. And so I had to drill and tap another hole. Luckily there's enough meat there so when we torque it, it won't damage anything or crack it. Awesome. Lines up exactly how it's supposed to. This is the price of going custom, people. Custom on the budget, that is. So now we got to get a bracket to go from here to here so we can mount the top, because right now it's pivoting like that. You can totally tell I've never done this before, but this is sheet metal. I think it's 26 gauge, so not too thick, just enough where these Harbor Freight shears can cut this and cut it by hand. That bolt is super long, but it's bottomed out, and this previous fender bolt is now going through that piece of sheet metal through the back. So the only thing I have to do now is add some pressure to the brake pads, and this should be locked in. I know, this little piece of metal, yeah, it's not gonna work. It's gonna fail. There's always a risk painting outside. I got a few dry spots I need to go over because I can't really see the black as I'm putting it back on. Put one more layer on and then I'm gonna go with the clear. Now we're at the finished result. This is from 600 to 1000 to 1500 to 2000. This is what's required, especially when you're not using professional grade tools and you don't have professional skill. But we're gonna buff this thing out, compound it, and polish it. That's what we're looking like so far. I still got to get a few of these scratches out, but it's looking pretty good. Dry. No lubrication. Ugh. I was confused. I thought all of the guts had to come out and go into this. This sits in there like that, and then it goes over like that. Yeah, that's what it's gonna look like. That polished piece is still gonna be exposed. This is a problem. So the chrome piece for the lever, it's not sitting flush against the handlebar. See that? And the reason is because that little piece right here covering up the piston, I think this may, you can actually see it being rubbed. I think it's gonna actually have to be cut slightly. There is no piece covering that compared to that. Should be good, nothing's too sharp. I could have cut a little bit more off. I think where we got it is good enough. Unfortunately, I do not know what the torque value is. These are not stock, and this is not stock. And I don't want to use stock torque values for something that's not stock. That's good. We're gonna leave it there. Brake fluid. So currently, the brake pads are not seated against the rotor. That's because we have no braking pressure. We're gonna bleed the brakes using this vacuum pump. All right, firming up. Probably one more go and we should be good. Got brakes up top, nothing leaking. Pumping the brakes, nothing's moving down here. I can also see that the pads are contacting the rotor on both sides, so we are good to go, baby. There's a lot going on here. There's a splice. There's a splice here for power that's going up to here, and this is a ground also. If I press this button, you'll see it turns on lights for the bike. So we know what that does. And there's another splice on this side, and it's for the floodlights on the front. This is the GPS. This is GPS antenna. I believe these are for the speakers. But where it gets kind of confusing is when it gets into this loom. So I have to match the loom, take this radio out and try to match it to the one that I'm putting in. The antenna looks to be the same. The GPS right there looks to be the same. The left and the right inputs look to be the same. I don't really know how this thing's sitting in here. Let's pop. That is sharp. That's how I did that, and I almost did it again. Jesus Christ, these pieces are sharp. I'm glad they cut this out because they cut it out perfectly. Now this is gonna be a bit controversial. He asked me not to make these connections permanent because he's adding a new amp and he wants to work on cleaning up the wires. So my job is not to make these permanent. You know, this is actually not a bad connection here. I know, I'm putting electrical tape on it. That's what he wants. That's what I'm gonna do. No offense, that looks awful. Oh God, this is giving me anxiety. Alrighty then. If it works, right? Mosquitoes are tearing me up right now. God, I'm willing to just cut this. I really just want to. God, is this one gonna be the same way? Oh, it is. Jesus Christ. That looks awful. I had the battery positive and I had these 3 wires, the 2 grounds and the parking grounded out here. And I got a big spark. Poof, I was like, oh crap. Basically the positive and the ground touched, so that's why I have these taped off. For this radio to work, it should be battery connected, B plus connected, AC power, which is accessory switch connected, and the ground. It should come on. It ain't coming on. I had a brain fart. I was like, dude, there's gotta be a pop fuse somewhere. Unfortunate, oh no, I broke a piece off in this dang thing. Holy crap. All right, got it out pretty quick. Both of these are 15 amp. We're gonna pop this in, see what happens. Man, that's, hey, it fits. That's all that matters. A fuse is a fuse. And voila, we got power. It ain't doing, oh, there it is. I just took a minute. All right, radio's working. There is a screen here that's supposed to come out and pop up. Oh, your boy is stupid. That says 7-inch manual flip out screen. That's why it ain't coming out. And it flips out. Booyah. Oh, is it a touch screen too? Bruh, that's crazy. So we got everything pretty much wired in. We got the antenna. There was 1 wire left to take out this entire old loom, and that was this wire. This is for the amp. This stereo does not come with something called an amplifier remote. And essentially, I had to look this up. It tells the amplifier to essentially cut on. I was like, why am I not getting sound? So I'm gonna bridge it into the B plus wire for battery positive. If the radio or the stereo is getting power, the amp should be getting power as well. We might create a parasitic draw now that I think about it, because if it's connected to this battery positive, that means the amp is gonna always be on. So you know what? Maybe I can bridge it into the accessory switch. That's power as well. So that means if I flip the switch, that's gonna turn the power, that's gonna turn the amp. When we flip the switch, we're giving it power. And for a Bluetooth audio test, bye-bye. I didn't get a chance to do this yesterday, but these are 3D printed brackets that I made in Fusion 360, and I'm gonna drill some holes in the fender, and then it's gonna bolt on the back. With a quick mock-up, we got the mount right there. We got the mount right there. We got the hardware there. You might be asking, why are these hex? This is all I could find given the time I have. We got the 1-inch gap right there at the front. The tire isn't rubbing the bottom because we have those blocks under it. And we got right at a teardrop perpendicular to the ground. If this thing comes off, it is not because of this. Something else failed, because this thing is tight. with everything put together, it's finally time to take this thing out on the road and yeah, see what it's gonna do. Hopefully it all stays together.
I'm not really excited to ride this thing. This is probably one of the heaviest bikes I've ridden in a long time. And that needs some grease. I'll grease that when I get back. The center of gravity of this bike is really weird because you got the bigger front tire. That's not so bad. But you got extra weight on the front end with the fairing. You got these speakers in the lowers and the fairing. You got these saddlebags and you got this trunk. It makes this thing really freaking weird. I knew this was gonna be a problem.
Unfortunately, messing with those speakers and that audio, yeah, we pretty much drained the battery. So we're gonna go ahead and wait for this and we're gonna jump it off.
Let's see. Friction's on. All right, let's go ride this damn thing and see what happens. Oh, I don't like the way this feels. Just did a brief ride on it and I have to immediately take this thing back. These brakes, something is not right on this front end. It's dancing way too easy. Look at this. You start throwing that front end, it's way too loose. I don't know if this was something before I started doing this, but something's not right up here.
I know, you said it wasn't gonna work, but I gave it a go anyway. But I replaced this piece of sheet metal with a thicker piece, which totally worked. Mounted everything back up, gave the brakes a try, and it checked out. Yeah, that piece was just way too thin.
The brakes is okay now. What I did, that piece of sheet metal I used, it was way too thin. The brake caliper wanted to move forward and it bent that piece of sheet metal under heavy braking. I used a piece of sheet metal that was about 4 times as thick, but something is still not right with this bike. And I don't think it has anything to do with the 21 or the brakes. It feels like the bike is oscillating left and right. There's so much geometry differences going on with this bike. The whole it feels like it really feels like the steering bearings are too loose. I don't trust pushing this thing right now. I should have rode this bike to see what potential issues that it may have had, because I don't have a reference point right now. I don't know what feels right and what doesn't feel right. If I do it, it's gonna do it even more. I actually need to slow down because I don't want to tank wobble it. It doesn't feel like the steering is tight enough. It's like the steering is out of balance. I hate that I don't have a reference point. Let me see if I can slow it down. I don't want to be going too fast trying to do this. It's like it's swaying like this, but at a faster pace. So I'm gonna go back home, jack the bike up, spin the tire and see what it's doing to make sure the wheel itself isn't oscillating. But something is off here. But brakes are fine.
It's delivery day for the VTX. I did some research and come to find out the VTXs, 1300s, they were known, or maybe even the 1800s, they were known for having weak steering head bearings. But the problem is, shook the forks, tried to find any lateral play in there. I could not find any. The only way to remedy that, you have to take all of that will need to come off. And so you can test the fall away of the forks, because right now basically it falls to the left and to the right really fast, and so that creates a very quick steering. That bracket, I did go back and paint it. It looks good, everything works up here, it stops. I recommend it also to change this out. Why? Because we can't see the mileage. We don't know when to change the oil if we don't know what the mileage is. We don't know how many miles we put on these tires. Also, I don't know how many miles the bike has on it, so I can't tell you how old possibly these steering head bearings are. But what we do know is that the wheel bearings are brand new. Stiffer springs. When we hit bumps on this thing, with this 21, with this weight up here, it's basically compressing that fork way more than it should. He needs stiffer springs for this front end. It's a little too bouncy for what it is. I did recommend to him also that he needs to upgrade the battery system on this bike. This one stock battery is designed to power the bike only. But the fact that he has 10 speakers on here and an amp, and he's looking to upgrade that amp, and he has a stereo system in here, that battery is not enough to run this. I would recommend probably either getting a bigger battery, but now you run the risk of where you're gonna put that in there, because that's designed specifically for that size. Maybe he can run a separate battery just for his audio system, because what's gonna happen, he's gonna go out and it's gonna draw that battery down and he's not gonna be able to get home because it's gonna kill the battery. But yeah, one more thing to think about. We've reached the end of this. He's happy, he loves the bike, he says he's impressed, and of course there's always more work to do, but we'll save that for another day. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Catch you in the next one. Peace.